Sexual desire is one of the most powerful and often perplexing human experiences. It is a fundamental part of who we are, yet it can feel like a mysterious force operating outside our complete control. Many people find that what they want or who they want doesn't always line up neatly with their conscious thoughts or their deeply held values. This isn't a sign of a personal failing. Rather, it is a testament to the incredible complexity of our inner worlds. Our desires are woven from many different threads, biological, psychological, social, and cultural, creating a rich and sometimes tangled tapestry that defines our unique sexuality. Understanding this complexity is the first step towards a more compassionate relationship with ourselves. We often expect our desires to be simple, straightforward, and sensible. Society sometimes tells us that we should only want what is good for us, or what fits a certain mold. But human sexuality rarely adheres to such neat and tidy rules. It can be messy, surprising, and even a bit chaotic at times. You might find yourself drawn to someone who doesn't fit your usual type, or experiencing fantasies that seem to come out of left field. These experiences are incredibly common, shared by more people than you might imagine. The truth is, our sexual responses are not always a direct reflection of our rational minds or our moral intentions. This essay aims to explore the uncomfortable truths about sexual desire with honesty and compassion. We will delve into why attraction sometimes defies logic, why desire can linger even in relationships that cause us pain, and how our private fantasies may not align with our public values. It is crucial to understand that these contradictions do not inherently make someone a bad person. Instead, they highlight the intricate interplay of different systems within our brains and bodies, each contributing to the unique landscape of our individual desires. We will look at the biological imperatives, the unconscious influences, and the cultural scripts that all play a part. By acknowledging these complexities, we can move towards a deeper, more nuanced understanding of human sexuality. This understanding is not just academic, it has profound implications for our self-acceptance, our relationships, and our overall well-being. When we stop judging our desires and start exploring them with curiosity, we open ourselves up to a more authentic and integrated experience of our own erotic selves. This journey requires us to be gentle with ourselves, recognizing that the human experience of desire is vast, varied, and wonderfully, if sometimes uncomfortably complex. It is a journey worth taking, leading to greater peace and self-awareness. One of the most common uncomfortable truths about sexual desire is that attraction often doesn't follow logic. You might have a clear list of qualities you value in a partner, kindness, stability, shared interests, yet find yourself intensely drawn to someone who possesses none of these. This can be incredibly confusing and even frustrating. It feels like your heart, or perhaps a more primal part of you, is stubbornly refusing to listen to your sensible brain. This isn't because you are flawed or making poor choices intentionally, it's because different parts of your brain are responsible for different aspects of attraction and decision-making, and they don't always agree. Our brains have what we can think of as a gas pedal for sexual response, the sexual excitatory system, and a brake, the sexual inhibitory system. Sometimes the gas pedal gets pushed hard by cues that are exciting or novel, even if our cognitive, logical brain, which is connected to our values and long-term goals, is waving red flags. For instance, novelty itself can be a powerful trigger for desire, even if the source of that novelty isn't aligned with what we think we should want. The wanting mechanism in our brain, driven by dopamine, is more interested in potential rewards and excitement than in careful, rational assessment. This disconnect can manifest in various ways. Perhaps you find yourself attracted to someone who embodies traits you consciously dislike, such as arrogance or unpredictability. Or maybe you are in a perfectly good, stable relationship, yet feel a surprising spark for someone completely different. Someone who represents an escape or an adventure. These feelings don't automatically invalidate your values or your current commitments. They simply highlight that our attraction mechanisms are sensitive to a wide range of stimuli, many of which operate below the level of conscious thought. It's like having a very sensitive smoke detector that sometimes goes off for burnt toast, not just a real fire. Understanding this internal push and pull is crucial. It is not about a failure of willpower or a sign of a flawed character. Instead, it is a normal part of how human brains are wired. Our more primitive instinctual brain systems, responsible for immediate responses and survival-related cues, can sometimes overpower our more recently evolved, rational prefrontal cortex. Recognizing this allows us to approach these confusing attractions with curiosity rather than self-blame. It means acknowledging the feeling without necessarily acting on it, and understanding that internal contradictions are part of the human experience, especially in the realm of desire. Another deeply uncomfortable truth is the persistence of sexual desire, or at least a strong sense of connection, even within relationships that are clearly harmful or unfulfilling. Friends and family might wonder why someone stays, and even the person themselves might struggle to understand the enduring pull towards a partner who causes them pain, anxiety, or sadness. This isn't a simple case of poor judgment. It often involves complex emotional and physiological factors that create a powerful, albeit unhealthy, bond. The human need for attachment is profound, and sometimes this need can override our logical understanding of what is good for us. Intermittent reinforcement is a powerful psychological principle at play here. If a partner is sometimes loving and attentive and other times distant, critical, or even abusive, this unpredictable pattern of reward can create a surprisingly strong addiction-like bond. The moments of kindness or intimacy become incredibly potent, and we find ourselves constantly seeking them, hoping to recapture those good feelings, even if they are rare and interspersed with periods of distress. This kind of dynamic can be more compelling in a difficult way than consistent negativity, because the hope for a positive outcome is always dangled just out of reach, keeping us hooked. Furthermore, our brains are wired for familiarity. Even a painful or dysfunctional relationship pattern can become familiar, and the familiar, however uncomfortable, can sometimes feel safer or more predictable than the unknown prospect of leaving and starting over. There's a certain comfort in knowing what to expect, even if what you expect is difficult. The idea of navigating the world alone or finding a new partner can seem overwhelmingly daunting, especially if self-esteem has been eroded within the harmful relationship. The body also remembers patterns of touch and intimacy, and these physical connections can create a longing that persists despite emotional pain. It is also important to consider that the intensity experienced in volatile or difficult relationships can sometimes be misinterpreted as deep passion or profound love. The highs and lows, the drama and reconciliation can create a sense of aliveness or significance that might be missing in more stable, calmer interactions, especially for individuals who have become accustomed to such intensity. This doesn't mean the relationship is healthy or that the desire is true in a constructive sense. It simply means that our emotional and sexual responses can become entangled with patterns that are ultimately detrimental to our well-being, making it incredibly hard to break free. Sexual fantasies are a common and natural part of human sexuality, yet they can also be a source of significant discomfort and confusion, especially when they don't seem to align with our conscious moral values or real-world desires. Many people experience fantasies that involve themes, scenarios, or individuals they would never, ever want to encounter or enact in real life. These might include taboo subjects, power dynamics that feel unsettling, or acts that contradict their ethical principles. The presence of such fantasies can lead to feelings of guilt, shame, or fear that there is something fundamentally wrong with them. It is crucial to understand that fantasies are not a direct script for action, nor are they a perfect reflection of our character or deepest wishes for reality. The mind's private theater is a space where we can explore a vast range of possibilities, emotions, and scenarios without real-world consequences. Fantasies can serve many purposes. They can be a source of pleasure and arousal, a way to relieve stress, a method for processing anxieties, or simply a playground for the imagination. Sometimes the forbidden nature of a particular theme is precisely what makes it exciting in a fantasy context, tapping into a sense of novelty or transgression that is safely contained within the mind. For example, someone who is a committed pacifist and believes strongly in equality might have fantasies involving power imbalances or non-consensual themes. This doesn't mean they secretly desire to harm or be harmed, or that they condone such actions in reality. Instead, the fantasy might be exploring themes of control, surrender, vulnerability, or taboo in a symbolic way. It could be a way for the brain to experience intense emotions or sensations in a controlled environment. The key difference is the absolute lack of real-world intent or desire for such scenarios to actually occur. Our fantasy lives and our real lives operate under different rules. Therefore, judging ourselves harshly for the content of our fantasies is often counterproductive and unnecessary. These internal images and narratives are just that, thoughts. They do not obligate us to act, nor do they define our moral standing. Acknowledging the disconnect between fantasy and reality can be liberating. It allows us to accept this part of our sexuality without shame, recognizing that the human mind is capable of conjuring a vast array of scenarios, many of which are simply explorations of sensation, emotion, or narrative, rather than blueprints for behavior. Compassion for our own inner world is essential here. Section 5. Not a reflection of character understanding contradictory desires. When we're faced with, sexual desires that seem to contradict our values or attractions that don't make logical sense, it's easy to jump to the conclusion that we are somehow a bad person, flawed or hypocritical. And this self-judgment can be a heavy burden, adding layers of shame and anxiety to an already complex internal experience. However, it's really vital to understand that these internal contradictions are a fundamental part of being human, not an indictment of your character. Your brain is an incredibly complex organ with different systems often working towards different goals simultaneously, leading to these internal conflicts. Think of your mind as a committee, with various members having different priorities and perspectives. The part of you that values stability and kindness might be at odds with a part that craves novelty and excitement. And the part that adheres to a strict moral code might be bewildered by the fantasies generated by a more primal, imaginative part. This internal diversity doesn't mean you are broken, it means you are multifaceted. No single thought, feeling, or desire defines the entirety of who you are. Your character is more accurately reflected in your conscious choices, your actions, and how you treat others in the real world. The presence of an unwanted attraction or a disturbing fantasy does not mean you will act on it, nor does it mean you secretly condone the implications of that thought. We all have fleeting thoughts or urges that we would never choose to bring into reality. The capacity for self-awareness and conscious choice is what allows us to navigate these internal landscapes without letting every impulse dictate our behavior. Recognizing a desire or fantasy for what it is, a mental event, is different from endorsing it or identifying with it as a core part of your identity. Therefore, practicing self-compassion is key when grappling with these uncomfortable truths. Instead of labeling yourself as bad, try to approach these experiences with curiosity and a willingness to understand the underlying mechanisms. And remember, you're not alone in this. Many, if not most, people experience similar conflicts. The human experience is rich with paradox and contradiction, and our sexuality is no exception. Your worth as a person is not diminished by the complexity or even the perceived darkness of your inner world. It is defined by your intentions, your efforts, and your capacity for kindness, both to others and to yourself. Section 6. The body's blueprint. Biological underpinnings of desire. Our sexual desires are not just abstract thoughts or emotional whims, they are deeply rooted in our biology. A complex interplay of hormones, neurotransmitters, and brain structures orchestrates the ebb and flow of arousal and attraction. While we often think of hormones like testosterone and estrogen as the primary drivers, the reality is more nuanced. These hormones certainly play a crucial role in maintaining sexual interest and function, but they are part of a much larger biological system that influences who and what we find appealing, and how intensely we experience that appeal. The brain's reward system, heavily reliant on the neurotransmitter dopamine, is central to sexual desire. When we encounter something or someone that our brain flags as potentially rewarding from a sexual perspective, whether due to learned associations or more primal cues, dopamine is released. This creates a feeling of motivation, anticipation, and pleasure, driving us to seek out more of that stimulus. This system is very powerful and can sometimes be activated by cues that our conscious, logical mind might not endorse. It's the wanting part of desire, distinct from the liking part, which involves different neurochemicals. Evolutionary biology also offers insights into some of the patterns of attraction we observe. From an evolutionary standpoint, traits that signaled health, fertility, or the ability to provide and protect would have been advantageous for reproductive success. While our conscious minds in the 21st century may not be focused on these primal imperatives, our brains may still carry an ancient blueprint that makes us subtly more attuned to certain physical characteristics or behaviors. This doesn't mean we are slaves to our evolutionary past, but it does suggest that some of our attractions might have roots deeper than personal preference or cultural conditioning alone. Furthermore, genetics can play a part in our individual differences in sexual responsiveness and orientation. While there isn't a single sexuality gene, our genetic makeup contributes to the development of our nervous system, our hormonal balance, and our sensory sensitivities, all of which can influence our experience of desire. Understanding these biological underpinnings doesn't reduce the beauty or mystery of desire, but it does help us appreciate that it is a natural, physiological process. It reminds us that our bodies have their own wisdom and their own responses, which are not always under our direct conscious command. Section 7. Echoes from within. The unconscious shaping of attraction. Beyond our conscious awareness and even our observable biology, the unconscious mind plays a significant role in shaping the landscape of our sexual desires. This vast, hidden part of our psyche stores a lifetime of experiences, emotions, and learned associations, many of which we may not even remember. These submerged elements can profoundly influence who we find attractive, the kinds of relationship dynamics we are drawn to, and the themes that populate our sexual fantasies. It is a realm where logic often takes a backseat to symbolism, emotion, and deeply ingrained patterns. Early life experiences, particularly our relationships with primary caregivers, can lay down a template for what intimacy, connection, and even excitement feel like. If our early environment was characterized by certain dynamics, perhaps emotional distance, unpredictability, or enmeshment, we might unconsciously seek out partners or situations that replicate these familiar feelings, even if they are not objectively healthy or fulfilling. This isn't a conscious choice, but rather an unconscious pull towards what feels known, a phenomenon sometimes referred to as repetition compulsion. The unconscious mind isn't necessarily seeking happiness, but familiarity. Moreover, societal messages and cultural norms absorbed in childhood and adolescence, often without critical examination, become part of our unconscious framework. Ideas about what is considered sexy, masculine, feminine, or romantic are internalized long before we develop the capacity for conscious critique. These internalized scripts can then surface in our attractions and desires, sometimes in ways that surprise or even conflict with our adult values. A person might consciously reject traditional gender roles, for example, yet find themselves unconsciously drawn to partners who embody them due to these early unexamined imprints. The unconscious also communicates through symbols and metaphors, which is why our dreams and fantasies can sometimes seem so bizarre or disconnected from our waking reality. A particular image, sensation, or scenario in a fantasy might not be a literal wish, but rather a symbolic representation of a deeper emotional need, fear, or unresolved issue. Exploring these unconscious influences, perhaps through self-reflection, therapy, or dream analysis, can offer valuable insights into the more enigmatic aspects of our desires, helping us understand the hidden currents that shape our attractions and our intimate lives. Section 8. The cultural canvas, how society paints our desires. Our sexual desires are not formed in a vacuum. They are profoundly shaped by the cultural canvas upon which our lives are painted. From the moment we are born, we are immersed in a sea of messages about sex, love, beauty, and relationships. These messages come from our families, our peers, the media we consume, our educational systems, and our religious or community affiliations. These cultural narratives provide us with scripts about what is considered normal, desirable, acceptable, or taboo in the realm of sexuality, and these scripts often become deeply embedded in our consciousness and our unconscious responses. Consider how standards of beauty and attractiveness vary dramatically across cultures and throughout history. What is deemed sexually appealing in one society or era might be considered neutral or even unattractive in another. These standards are not inherent or universal, they are learned. Media portrayals, advertising, and social trends constantly reinforce certain ideals, influencing who we perceive as potential objects of desire. If we are constantly bombarded with images suggesting that only a certain body type or set of features is attractive, it can subtly shape our own attractions even if we consciously strive to appreciate diversity. Cultural norms also dictate how we are supposed to feel and behave sexually. Some cultures are very open and permissive regarding sexuality, while others are highly restrictive and prescriptive. These broader societal attitudes influence our individual comfort levels with our own desires, our willingness to explore our sexuality, and the ways in which we express it. If certain desires or identities are stigmatized or condemned by our culture, it can lead to internal conflict, shame, and the suppression of authentic parts of ourselves. Conversely, a more accepting cultural environment can foster greater self-acceptance and sexual well-being. Moreover, culture provides us with romantic and sexual scripts, the expected sequences of events in courtship, relationships, and sexual encounters. We learn these scripts through stories, movies, songs, and observing others. While these scripts can provide a sense of order and predictability, they can also be limiting if they don't align with our individual desires or needs. Recognizing the cultural shaping of our desires allows us to critically examine these influences, to question whether they truly serve us, and to consciously choose to embrace or redefine them in ways that feel more authentic to our own unique sexual landscape. Section 9. Conclusion. Embracing complexity for sexual self-understanding. The journey through the landscape of sexual desire is rarely a straight path. It is often filled with surprising turns, unexpected vistas, and sometimes uncomfortable contradictions. As we have explored, our attractions do not always bow to logic. Desire can persist in challenging circumstances, and our fantasies may inhabit realms far removed from our moral intentions. These experiences are not signs of personal defect, but are instead testaments to the wonderfully intricate design of human sexuality, woven from biological threads, unconscious echoes, and the vibrant colors of our cultural environment. Understanding this is paramount. Acknowledging these multifaceted influences, the hormonal urges and brain chemistry, the deeply buried memories and learned associations, the societal narratives that shape our perceptions, is the cornerstone of developing a more compassionate and accurate understanding of ourselves. When we stop demanding that our desires be simple, linear, or perfectly aligned with our conscious ideals, we create space for genuine self-acceptance. This acceptance is not about condoning harmful actions, but about recognizing the full spectrum of our inner experiences without immediate judgment or shame. It is about being honest with ourselves about what we feel. This deeper understanding allows us to navigate our sexual lives with greater wisdom and authenticity. It empowers us to make conscious choices that align with our core values, even when faced with conflicting internal signals. It helps us to be more understanding and empathetic partners, recognizing that others too grapple with their own complex desires. By embracing the inherent messiness and complexity of human sexuality, we can move away from rigid expectations and towards a more fluid, curious, and ultimately more fulfilling engagement with this vital aspect of our lives. This involves a continuous process of learning and self-discovery. Ultimately, the uncomfortable truths about sexual desire invite us into a richer, more honest relationship with ourselves. They encourage us to look beneath the surface, to question, to explore, and to grow. Sexuality is not a problem to be solved, but a part of our humanity to be understood and integrated. By approaching our desires with curiosity rather than fear, with compassion rather than condemnation, we can foster a sense of inner peace and integrity. This allows us to more fully inhabit our bodies and our lives, appreciating the complex, sometimes contradictory, but ultimately beautiful nature of what it means to be a sexual human being.